friends out, or your mother or brother or somebody, by filing an affidavit in support of the claim that they're coming after him for, it ain't gonna work unless you're there and you're able to defend it and you have first-hand knowledge. Very important. You gotta have first-hand knowledge. You can't say, well, so-and-so told me, or such and such a person saw that and they told me that they saw you there. That ain't gonna cut it. They'll throw it out in a heartbeat. Okay, we have, that's hearsay evidence. Okay, there's privileges, like husband-wife privilege. You have privileges with your pastor or priest or whoever. They're not able to disclose what you talk to them in confidence about. Lawyer privileges, if you're talking to an attorney, you can't disclose because it's lawyer-client privilege. He talks about those. And how to impeach a witness, he talks about that. And examining witnesses. I had a case, very interesting, where I was arrested for resisting arrest and a family court arrest for a warrant on child support. So they arrested me, and the trial court for resisting arrest was in the town of Dayton. The family court, I was already in jail. Or they put me in jail over this, and that was going to be an Olean. Well, when it came time for the trial in Dayton, I had 3 state police officers and 2 county sheriffs that arrested me, threw me down to the ground, beat me up, kicked me in the back and everything. I never tried to resist. It was just one of those charges where they felt they were going to get me because I'm fighting all the way. I've been fighting them for a long time, and they're trying to get me out of the picture, and they think I'm going to go away. So I got these guys on the stand, or the prosecutor puts them on the stand and asks them questions. So the judge asked me, he says, okay, Mr. Levecche, would you like to cross-examine these police officers? And I just looked at the police officers, I looked at the prosecutor, and I demanded a jury, and I had a jury, and I said to the judge, I said, no, I don't think so. I don't know of anything I'd like to ask him at this time. He looked at me, and everybody looked at me like, how can you be doing your own case and you're not going to ask any questions of these attorneys or these prosecutors or police officers? And so I'm kind of shooting at the hip here. And I said to the judge, I says, however, I reserve my right to bring them all up as my own witnesses. And the judge looked at the prosecutor and he says, can he do that? And the prosecutor looked at him and he goes, I guess, I don't see why not. I've never had anybody ask to do that. And I says, what the heck? I says, they're already here. I don't have to subpoena them. And then I can ask them questions that the prosecutor wasn't asking them. Because when you cross-examine somebody, the only thing you can ask them is what the prosecutor brought up with the witness. If you go beyond the scope of that objection, they throw it out and can't ask them a question. Well, I already knew what they're going to say from what the prosecutor said, so that formatted what I wanted to ask them, which was beyond what the prosecutor asked them. And I says, one more thing, Your Honor. And he says, what's that? And I said, here, I'm sitting at this table with handcuffs on and orange suit, and jury people in my town, you know, and real criminal. And so he says, what's that? And I says, well, before they testify, I would like each one of them sequestered in a room where they can't hear the testimony, so that they don't know what the other one is saying. And the prosecutor starts mumbling, and he says, okay, no problem. I says, all right. And I says, and I'd like the foreman of the grand jury or somebody in the jury to make sure that they hear what the one on the stand is going to say. I said, okay. So they did that, and I was able, at that time, to get all the information out of each police officer to prove all the elements of my case, to defend myself, and I was found not guilty. By myself with handcuffs on and an orange thing. And when they found me not guilty, not only did they find me not guilty of resisting arrest, but that the family court warrant wasn't even a warrant at all. It was already expired, it had no force and effect, it was never reissued or anything. And I would have sat in there for 9 months in that jail on a warrant that did not exist. I would have sat there probably for another 6 months for resisting arrest when I brought up the fact that when the warrant was null and void, without force, that I could resist arrest at any means whatsoever, according to the Supreme Court, even if it meant the death of one of the officers for trying to illegally arrest me. And I never resisted, but I never brought that up. I just brought up the fact that the warrant was no good, they had no cause to arrest me, they had no reason to charge me with resisting arrest when there wasn't a valid warrant, and none of them checked, and I kept asking, I want to see the warrant, I want to see the warrant, and none of them ever brought it forward. So, it pays to be persistent and not give up. And when I had these police officers on the stand, I think one of the most important things in my life was to stand in court with a bunch of jury members. And the whole room was full of my friends in the courtroom. And I had the police officers on the stand, the state police officers, and I asked each and every one of them, the first thing I said to them, I says, Officer so-and-so, you have the right to remain silent. Because anything you say today can and will be used against you in a court of competent jurisdiction, be it criminal or civil. Would you like an attorney? And they turned, their jaws at the very beginning just dropped. I had each one of them, from that point on, I was in control of the entire talk, the entire interrogation of these guys. I did my discovery right then and there. And the jury people, I'm watching them, you know, and they're like, wow, this guy's got some guts, you know. And the prosecutor just says, the judge says, I don't know if they need an attorney. I said, I didn't ask you, I'm asking the officer. Would you like to have an attorney? If you do, one will be appointed to you, maybe. Or if not, then you'll have to hire your own attorney. I says, I don't know how that works with you guys. And the prosecutor says, oh, don't worry about it. They don't need an attorney. I'm here. I says, oh, okay. Are you going to represent them in a court of criminal law against a grand jury for rights violations? Oh, don't worry about it. They're all set. The cop says, no, we don't want an attorney. It's okay, good. I said, so what you say in here stands. They do that to us, I did it to them. I did it to all 5 police officers. And halfway through the thing, they were all shaken. By the time they got off the stand, they were all shaken, the questions that I asked them. I mean, I pinpointed them right into a corner. I mean, these guys are running around the country with guns and cop cars, paid for by the people. They don't even know the laws that they're trying to enforce on the road. They've been allegedly not even schooled in the Constitution. They don't know what's right, what's wrong. And I had these guys shaking, and I had a female officer break down and start crying and wanted to get off the stand halfway through the interrogation as a witness. And I said, no, I'm not letting you off. You were kicking me in the back, and you wouldn't stop, and I'm not going to let you off.
Good for you.
And so the case was totally dismissed, and I went back to the Cattaraugus County Sheriff, or to the jail, the cop car, and the sheriff says to me, man, he said, I'm going to tell you something. I was pulling for you the whole time. He says, I'm just so glad that people come in and they do this. And they're willing to fight. He says, nobody wants to fight anymore. They just lay down, roll over, and die.
Yeah.
And he says, none of them cops had any authority to do anything to you. And I says, exactly. And he says, and you proved it in court. And he says, I don't know of any lawyers at the time. I said, well, I don't know. I know they wouldn't either. But anyway, it's very important. This course here will give you the power and the knowledge and how to go about doing all this stuff too. Okay, circumstantial evidence, and it has to be authenticated. And then he talks about the trial, writing final orders. Once the trial is over, you write the orders for the judge to how you want the court to go, because you're moving the court. If it's your case, you want the favor in your favor, and you want your goal for what your lawsuit's about, or you want to be discharged from it, so you're the one that's writing the order for the judge, and then you ask the judge, well, if the opposing counsel files an order for you to file before it's agreed upon, I would like to have a copy of that furnished to me. And they will. As long as you follow the rules, you're not going in there belligerent, you're doing everything by their rules, and they look at this stuff and they see that you know what you're doing, and they start to become pretty much afraid of what's going on. And they don't know the law any more than you do, because each case is different and they have to go and research every element of this thing. They don't have time. They're playing golf. They're having dinner parties with people. They're doing other things that are going to make them fast money. They don't want to have to fight a pro se, because a pro se will nail them to the wall. Their feet will be like in a big fire. if they do something wrong, because we can attack them and we can attack the judges. But if the judge does something wrong and we have an attorney, they get away with it. And by doing it this way, we know what the judges are doing and what they're not doing or what they're supposed to be doing. Okay, at the very end, he goes through the post-judgment. If it's not a favorable judgment, how to do a post-judgment. And then settlement, how you settle your case at the very end to be paid for damages, if that may be the case, or for injunctive relief, if that's what you're looking for. And also during the entire jurisdictionary, he insists that and shows us how to do the things necessary in the event we are going to appeal. Always figure you're going to get ruled upon against, and you have to file an appeal. And if you prepare your case and present it to the fact that you have all the necessary ingredients that you can go to the appellate court with, then you have a good chance of having it overturned through the appellate division. But if we miss parts, and we don't do our objections when the other opponent is coming in with hearsay evidence or coming in with fraud or lies or things that aren't true, then we are not going to be able to bring it up in appeal. The appeal is only things that happened at the trial that were wrong. And that's what they will decide on whether or not we have a case in the appellate area. Okay, he gets into jurisdiction, talks a lot about jurisdiction, and the summation. He does a summation and his conclusion, and then at the very end he just gets done talking about the jurisdictionary course. It's a very, very, very well worth investment that I've invested in, and I would like to start a course, a group where we can learn this stuff. And there's a lot more things too that I'm learning from the AIB network that are beyond the scope of the jurisdictionary. I mean, it's just, the jurisdictionary is the way to bring it into court. It's the way to format it, to put it together, and to get our remedy. But if we don't have the jurisdictionary, no matter what we have for information, we cannot bring it in under the right format. And even Rod Glass highly recommends the jurisdictionary. He said, folks, he says, before you learn the stuff that I'm teaching you, he says, get the jurisdictionary course and learn it inside out and backwards. He says, for whatever reason you ever are going to need it, that's something that we should have all been taught in school, which we never were. And that's something like an 8th grader can learn in a weekend. Pardon?
They don't teach civics anymore.
No, absolutely. Over in Angola here, Derby, at the school they had a course where they had the high school kids could join a civics class. And they had actual courtroom. They were teaching them how to be on the prosecution, how to be on the defense. And that went on for a few years. I don't know if it's still there or not. I used to live in Farnham over here a bunch of years ago, and my stepdaughter was involved in that, and she loved it. She loved it. And whoa, oh, it's a boss. It's a boss. Okay, on the jurisdictionary, the second disc that he has, it's PDF files. And he talks about, he's got the PDF files. One of them is to be heard. The other one is causes.